We need to put some Holdo maneuvers.
That was a quick 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holdo Maneuver podcast. This is Marc again here with you, and then
Mike.
As always. And if you guys haven't listened to this show before, we are a podcast that talks about everything that we like about with Star Wars as dads that are trying to fit it into our very busy lives. And before we start the show with some very special guests, Mike has something that he wanted to ask us all.
Well, how does Chewbacca prefer his oatmeal? Anyone can answer.
Lumpy.
Lumpy indeed.
Oh. You comedy writer. Sorry to ruin the joke.
Should have known we wouldn't get away with it.
Sorry. I'm like, is it gonna be lumpy? I mean, that
Obvious.
yeah, I guess it's lumpy. Yeah.
It might make him itchy.
I would say itchy. I would have said chewy. He prefers a chewy, but
We did a similar one where Han Solo likes his steak chewy, so we kind of
okay. There you go.
couldn't reuse it.
Or you're just done a really bad one. We're just like, he likes it Marla.
Yeah.
Chicken
He
Marla.
likes a kashyyyk.
But yeah, if you guys are watching right now, as you can see, we have us with us this week, producers Kyle Newman and Adam F. Goldberg, who are the producers of the new documentary, A Disturbance in the Force. So thank you guys for joining us this week. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm retweeting right now that we're live. There we go.
Oh yeah, and I think this is also the first time that we're like streaming the live stream to Facebook and Twitter. I will not call it anything else other than Twitter, because that is what it is called.
Thank you for having us, because we're very excited about this doc. It's been 3 years in the making, and Adam and I always try to bring Adam stuff. I always want to collaborate with Adam. We go back almost like 30 years from our NYU days, and so this felt like a nice continuation and Star Wars vibes of where we left off with Fanboys. So it was fun to collaborate with Jeremy again too, because I worked with him on the Raiders, the story of the greatest fan film ever made documentary.
Highly recommend both of those movies as well too, if people have not.
Thank you.
And a quick aside is that this will show how long ago it was. When I worked at Blockbuster, I don't remember what year it was, but I was putting the DVDs out, and I was putting this Fanboys copy out, and I saw that it was autographed by you, Kyle. And then I remember, I don't even remember what year it was, but I sent a tweet. I was like, did you autograph random copies of the DVD? And then I was like, oh, cool.
Because I remember 2017 you wrote me. I think I did a signing of Fanboys at a Blockbuster in like the San Diego area.
Nice. Yeah, it was just randomly in there with like new copies of DVDs that we're putting out. I was like, does it like printed? I was like, no, that's like signed.
That's mine now.
I was like, yeah, since I was the manager at the time and I was the only one working, I put it aside. I was like, I'm going to buy that.
Nice.
That's I mean, you go on eBay with that Kyle Newman signed Fanboys DVD, you're going to get at least
less than you paid.
Well, yeah, definitely for the year and inflation, but maybe I don't know.
$3 for a DVD? Oh, I'll take that all day long.
Nice. And really quick, I wanted to let you know, Adam, that I know it was a very short-lived show, but I was a huge fan of Breaking In.
Oh, that's awesome.
One that was on too. So thank you for that show, even for its short existence.
Thank you for being the one that watched it. I appreciate it.
It was awesome.
That was a great cast.
That was it was such a great cast. It's how I met Christian Slater, one of my favorite people on the planet. Brett Harrison. We had an awesome cast. And yeah, I don't even know where you could find that show, but for Star Wars fans, I will say this: tons of Star Wars all throughout that show. And the finale, I had found out that we were basically canceled, and I still had to shoot the finale. Oh, so I just went so hard at it, and I recreated the Death Star, and they have to break into Martin Starr plays a guy who's obsessed with Star Wars. His house is designed after the Death Star. They have to break in and take back Chewbacca's suit. And I had Peter Mayhew on the show, and we did lightsaber battle. I mean, it is the craziest TV finale that no one has ever seen. So if you love Star Wars, just watch that finale. It's wild. Wow. It's crazy.
$3.79 on Amazon.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, so starting off again, thank you guys for coming on. And again, the name of the documentary is "The Disturbance in the Force: How the Star Wars Holiday Special Happened." Mike and I last year talked about the holiday special itself.
Oh, glory.
Yeah, so I wore this Darth Vader holiday sweater last year.
Same outfit as well. I wear it all the time.
But yeah, when I first saw that this documentary even existed, I was very excited to check it out. And then when I saw you two were involved among many others, I got even more excited about it just because of like both of your past involvement with Star Wars related things, whether it was Fanboys or anything else that has the name Star Wars on it. But the one thing I did want to say really quick too is that for where you were shot some of the interviews, I really loved that you shot some of them at the Scum and Villainy Cantina in LA, because it's just like a good backdrop for that, and that place is pretty cool too if people haven't checked it out.
Yeah, J.C. Reichenberg let us shoot there, so we did shoot Seth Green, Bonnie Burton, Taron Killam. Beautiful location. You can see like the they have the, just like in Callum's Cantina, it looks like IG-88's head. They've gone down to those details. You can see his head in A New Hope there. Beautiful location. If you're in the LA area, you should absolutely check it out. For a while, they had a drink. I don't drink alcohol, but he made a drink. It was like Kyle Newman drink. I'm trying to think what it was, but it was something to do with Ben Quadraneros, I think.
Nice.
Here, my tiny brain was like, these guys have cool houses. I didn't even think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
a little known fact. Maybe I'm incorrect about this. Speaking of Ben Quadraneros, I believe Kyle is responsible for the Ben Quadraneros Kenner action figure.
Yes, there is an action figure book, and made by Daryl DePriest is one of the guys who ran the Star Wars Hasbro line. And in the anecdote about the Ben Quadraneros vintage style figure, he says this happened because of me. And so sometimes when I'm at a Star Wars celebration or something, people will bring me their Ben Quadraneros to sign. And I was at the Universal, like Star Wars, Disney Hollywood Studios after one celebration, and it was like one of those Star Wars nights, and I was with Matt Wood, who's like the sound maestro at Lucasfilm. Matt voiced Ben Quadraneros, so some guy tracked us down and had us double sign Ben Quadraneros. And a little known fact, I got to play a Toong, which is Ben Quadraneros' species, his race of people, in an episode of the Clone Wars. The episode never came out because it involved the death of Cad Bane.
Wow.
And they obviously changed the history of it. It had something different to do with Boba Fett. It was Boba Fett or Sing Bounty Hunters Guild, and I was a Toong, and my offspring had been kidnapped by Tusken, so I hired the Bounty Hunters Guild to go track down my family. And I did the voice kind of like Charlie in the Box from the Island of Misfit Toys. Nice. It was pretty amazing.
Ben Quadraneros does feel like he belongs in the Star Wars Holiday Special. There is a vibe of like oddness to Ben Quadraneros that it seems like he belongs in somewhere in that special.
He just didn't belong in Star Wars. He looked like this weird mutated California raisin. It didn't physics applied to a lot of characters in the Star Wars universe in the original trilogy. Ben Quadraneros, you look at him and you go, this doesn't make sense unless the inside of him is like something gaseous. There's no way those limbs keep him up. And so I always I love the prequels. I love Phantom Menace, but I always hated this character. And then I think I said somewhere he was my least favorite character, and then he had to become my favorite character. And so somehow it became this joke. And at all panels, I would always ask Dave Filoni. I would get in line for the questions at Comic-Con or a celebration. I'd be like, Mr. Filoni, or I would send up people. And they'd be like, everyone here wants to know, when will Ben Quadraneros make it onto the Clone Wars? And he would get so frustrated. He's like, is Newman out there? Is Newman making it? He was so angry because I would like Shanghai his panels about this terrible character. And then he did put Ben Quadraneros, I think it was season 6 or 7 of Clone Wars, Anakin has a pod racing poster in his bedroom in the Jedi Temple, and it's of Ben Quaternaros, the pod racer. It was like somebody he looked up to.
Man.
Yeah.
So I think we've lost every listener now, unless they love Ben Quaternaros. So
there's someone out there that has to love Ben Quaternaros.
Yeah. Was that the episode that you were talking about with Cad Bane dying? Was that the one that was supposed to show like how Boba Fett got the dent in his helmet, or was that?
Yeah, they have a duel, Boba and Cad. It was a 3-part thing. So they put out all the other episodes from the lost season, but those 3 remained permanently lost because they were doing some changes to the canon. But I haven't seen some of the other
Cad Bane. We have huge Cad Bane plans. He's going to be live action, and then he'll just get killed. That was a bummer.
Well, they brought Darth Maul back how many times? Like, come on.
Yeah, maybe you can be live action version.
Yeah, I remember I told Samuel Jackson when I was working with him, I put the idea in his head. I'm like, Darth Maul got cut in half and all these other punks come back. You lost a wrist. And then you jump, then you fell down, you probably landed. He's like, you're right, I should be back. And he was like very agitated. He wasn't. And I'm still hoping that he does come back. He makes some type
purple
of
lightsaber just cost too much money.
Yeah.
Purple's too expensive.
Look, yeah, I guess kind of speaking of that too, what for both of you, what was like your first Star Wars memory, and like how do you think how did you first discover Star Wars, and how did it like come into your life, I guess?
Kyle, you go. I'm curious.
All right. I just remember like going to like a drive-in or something, or being in a parking lot after seeing Star Wars late in the summer, maybe early fall of '77, when it was still around, with my family, my extended family, my cousins. It was like this crazy energy. So we had all these maybe 15, 20 relatives in the parking lot. Everyone was like, oh my God, we love this movie. I don't remember, or maybe I saw a picture and I'm making the memory up, but my memory of Star Wars became, like, my first memories are on Earth are of Star Wars or Star Wars related. Star Wars toys, my family bringing home Star Wars toys and hiding them from me and playing games where I could find them. Everything was Star Wars in my life. So, yeah, that's it. I'm a Star Wars child.
Nice. How about you?
My literal earliest memory is waiting in line for Empire Strikes Back, and just the line being down. Like, I'd never seen a line that long. Like, when you're little, that young, you like remember like stuff that's like jarring and traumatic. And I think like the fact that there was this long line and my dad was stressed out, and like it was not a pleasant, getting there was like, I still remember it vividly. It was such a madhouse. Then I remember sitting, I don't even think, Kyle, how old were we? So is it, we were like,
you were probably close to 4.
4, yeah. So it's, so I don't even know if I had seen, like, I'm sure I had seen Star Wars, but I was 4. But I do remember sitting in the theater watching Empire, and just thinking it was like the greatest thing. So that's my earliest memory, Star Wars.
Nice.
Yep.
You can go, Mike.
So Star Wars is important to both of you, you'd say, right? Like, it's an important part of your lives, Star Wars. Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Life and in our careers too. Like, it's, it's
there isn't a day that goes by where I don't think about Star Wars. I'm on a thread with some friends. We talk about Star Wars every day. A couple different threads. It's just one of those things where I'm on an Instagram thing with other friends and they just send Star Wars memes to each other. It's inescapable, and professionally you correlate a lot to Star Wars. You're always like, oh, this reminds me of this and this. You just make those natural comparisons dramatically, mythologically. It's permeated our culture and definitely my life. Yeah.
Yeah. We I went to NYU with Kyle, and there's a couple friends that I have where like the reason we're friends was Star Wars. Like, I think, when Kyle and I were at NYU, like, that was Pulp Fiction, which had just been out, and like everyone was really into Tarantino, and like, Star Wars wasn't really a thing. And I kind of found 2 people, Kyle and this other guy, Jeff Yorks, who I credited the Muppet Show with, and like Jeff bought Phantom Menace toys, and he cleared out all his clothes, and he and his roommate Brian K. Vaughan, who's a big graphic novel writer, literally their entire closet was Star Wars toys because they were investing. They're like, we're not going to miss the boat this time. So they and I still ask Jeff, I'm like, where are all those toys? You moved your clothes under your bed. Like, where's, and he's like, yeah, they're all just kind of like in a closet at home. Like
they're with the Beanie Babies.
Yeah, with the Beanie
we had
Babies.
Jeff. I remember it was like the Hasbro line was coming out again, the Kenner Hasbro line with the over sculpted figures, and Jeff and I would go. There was right across from NYU. There was like a KB or one of those stores right on Broadway, and we would go in there and check, and then we would make these pilgrimages up to FAO Schwartz, and it would take like 45 minutes to get uptown in the subway, and you get in there, and there'd be like one overly buff Luke hanging there, and you already had it. You're like, oh God, you have to go back 45 minutes, and it was before the days where you could just go check a store's inventory. You had to like go make pilgrimages to these places. But he and I would go to these places and try and track the resurgent line of action figures down. And they were brutal. Those are horrible sculpts, but you still had to have them.
So at what point did you decide we got to talk about the holiday special and find out how it came to be and all the behind the scenes of it? When did that first cross your mind to make this documentary? It
was Steve Kozak and Jeremy Kuhn are the co-directors. They're also producers. Jeremy's also the editor. Steve had a line into some of these veteran television luminaries. His father had been an agent to Bob Hope, and he grew up knowing a lot of these people, like B. Arthur, etc. He then began this process. I think his first interview was Lenny Rips, and I don't actually know when Jeremy and he like officially started working on it together. But then Jeremy reached out to me, and we had done Raiders together, and he was like, "Do you want to get involved in this Star Wars holiday special?" I said, "I'm in. Let's do it." And I talked to Adam, and he was in, and it just became obvious because it's one of those things where there's so many myths and misnomers about it that it made sense that you would need to research, explore it, and actually sit down with these people who were boots on the ground making this, as opposed to hearing like what the internet myths are. But wow, if we can sit with the acting, the dance troupe, or Bob Mackey, the legendary costumer, like when he's showing up those images in the documentary, it feels like I'm in a pitch session with him, and he's selling me on his vision for how he's going to bring this special to life. It's his memory is very present and visceral, and that's what was great about a lot of these guys. So Steve, I think, started this whole process of trying to track down these, variety TV show veterans to put this together, and then we just joined the army that was making this. And really, the army is just the four of us. It's me, Adam, Jeremy, and Steve. So this is a very independent movie.
The doc is equally like. We had a screening about maybe a month ago. I brought my wife to it. She's not a Star Wars. I mean, she knows it through me, but she's not rushing out this. She's not watching any of the Disney Plus shows. She's a very, very casual viewer, right? She loved the doc. Like when we were driving there, she's like, "Why do I want to watch this thing about the holidays?" Because the doc is really, as much as it is about the Star Wars holiday special, it's also kind of a deep dive into variety shows of the 70s.
Right. Yeah.
It's before my time. So, Steve, that's his thing. Like he knows that world inside out, and variety shows are so fascinating. Like the 70s was the Wild West of television, where they just put anything on. And there's only 3 channels, and like a show would be someone just with a microphone singing. That's it. Yep. So it really is a fascinating kind of like time capsule of the 70s nostalgia and just TV when TV was like figuring out what TV was.
Right.
So yeah, it's a really, it really kind of dives into something that I think if you're, in your 45 or under, you don't really know much about, which are these like old school. The only one I really knew was the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. That was like the only one I knew, which we get
into. That's the one I know.
Yeah.
I'm under 45. My parents grew up in the 70s. They had the Variety Hour on VHS, and we watched it as kids for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what.
Yeah, I think what Patton says is that, like, the Brady Bunch one, a lot of the bad ones that are like bad, so bad they're good, but like there's ones that are just like really bad that, if you're older, you remember. There's one we show a clip of just two mimes had their own variety show.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Shields Darnell or whatever their name was.
I think there's another one. It's like Texaco presents Wayne Newton at SeaWorld. And this was the days when like corporations funded things and they didn't really have any synergy. So Star Wars did not invent the variety format. And if you're coming at this and you don't know about that era of television, if you didn't ever experience it, and you're just looking at this on YouTube, you're going to look at this thing and be dumbfounded. You're like, why? What am I watching? How did Star Wars do this? But Star Wars was really just partaking in something that was commonplace. And this was also the tail end of variety. It was still relevant to a degree. There wasn't anything replacing it. But I think people were kind of at their end with variety television. And an important thing with this and setting up the doc the way they do is it gives you context. You can't just watch the Star Wars Holiday Special without context. And so right now, if you go pop this on YouTube or wherever, if you have like a CD-ROM of it, someone burned and gave you 20 years ago, you don't have context. And what's important about this documentary is that it sets the frame, sets the foundation for how you should look at and experience what you are about to watch. Right. And understanding the financial parameters, the business parameters, that George Lucas, the only reason he says yes to this is because he has a massive investment. His own money is going towards Empire Strikes Back. And he wants to make sure Star Wars stays relevant through the calendar year, that the toys are going to work, and that this Empire Strikes Back film that he's betting everything on also works. So if you look at it like that, you're like, okay, of course he's going to make a decision to say, CBS, primetime, Thanksgiving, Star Wars is going to be on TV. Okay, yeah, I'll say yes. Oh my God, what is happening? He didn't have the time to sit there and do this. And so that's what we try to bring to the conversation. It's easy to make jokes about the holiday special, take low blows. And everyone that's in this has fun with it, but nobody's mean. It's not a mean documentary in any way. We do this with affection and knowledge. Guys like J.W. Rinsler, if you love the making of Indiana Jones, the making of Star Wars, making of Empire, he was one of the greatest Star Wars historians. He got to work directly with George. He's in this doc, and he really brings wonderful insight into internal Lucasfilm and George's thought process. So it was any way we could get a vantage into early Lucasfilm or onto the set. That's what we coveted. And I think that's what really comes to life in this experience, because it's too easy just to make fun of it, but it's so much more fun to hear these stories.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. When I watched the doc, it wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be one of those making fun of type deal. And we'll talk about it a little bit, the revelations and stuff that came out. And I was like, wow, that is, who would have guessed? Like, Robin Williams almost in the Star Wars special.
Oh yeah.
How?
Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, oh, that would have made. I don't know where he would have shown up, but
he would have just been
married to a Wookiee. Han Solo was supposed to be married to a Wookiee. That was like one of the things George wanted. Like, there's some crazy stuff.
You can still do that in Solo too.
Yeah.
Good. Wookiee divorce.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to, like, because Star Wars now is such a huge, like, all-encompassing behemoth. Like, this was the time when there was no Star Wars except for one movie. So it's really fascinating to see, like, how this special happened, and it's so bad. And the fact is, you can't even really watch it. It's unwatchable. Like, you want to watch it, but you end up fast forwarding through it because it's just terrible. So, like, this doc is the best way to watch it because, like Kyle said, we give, we have comedians commenting on it. We give all the context. We explain how this happened and why. And we just pick the best moments of the doc that you can kind of enjoy. And we have a version of it, like, that's never been seen before, that just quality wise. The only versions that are out there are like triple,
When I watch
copies.
it's horrendous.
and this is just so clear. It's so like just like first airing. So
yeah, and I think that comes from one of the producers, his 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch master. It's really, and then you can do cleanup on it, which no one's really spent the time to clean it up. So you do see these degraded versions, proliferated around the internet. And so having this version to work from, and then being able to do some, historian type care on it, I think was important. So if you are watching this thing, it looks better than any VHS or any DVD you've ever been, handed. That's what's really cool. I know there's people that have asked, lots of people, at companies that make Star Wars, saying, how does this look better than anything we've seen?
They hid it from George Lucas. He didn't get his hands on that one.
George was like not letting anybody play with his copy. It's not sitting up there for perusing purposes or historical purposes. He's just like, no. So our copy was pretty good. And I think we work from 2 copies because not every copy just across the board is great. Sometimes there'll be a scene that's better in something else, and then Jeremy would clean it up. So we kind of have to you can't just apply a filter to one of them and make it look good. You kind of had to be like, all right, this scene in the Wookiee house looks a lot better here, and this one from this version looks great here, and then you jump around and piece them together.
Nice.
Now, speaking of the holiday special, do you guys have a favorite part that you watch and just got to see all the time? Like from it when you first watched it to now, something that's just in your head. I love that part.
For bonkers ability, like bonkers level, I always just go right to, I'm always like, oh, you've never seen the Star Wars holiday special? Sit down. And I just go right to Diane Carroll and VR Wookiee porn. And people are like, turn it on. What are you doing? What? This is not real. Like they don't believe that it's real. And they're like, stop, just stop. What? Stop. This is not, how could this be on TV? And they cannot believe. I can't believe. I don't think anybody in the world can believe.
It's really weird. It's very bizarre.
Silverback haired.
You guys didn't have grandpas in the living room watching
in the
VR
living
porn?
room, and he's like watching this stuff
over and over. He's
rewinding. So ahead of his time. Yeah. He's like, you know what? People are gonna be watching porn in their living room. Put the headset on. I don't know what he was saying, but he was right probably.
He's probably right. That's the sad part.
And we all know what genre of music he was listening to.
Yeah. It is. So obviously the Boba Fett part.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like the first appearance of Boba Fett, like super cool. We did a Goldbergs episode about the holiday special, which is some of the footage is in the doc, and that was kind of the ending of it. Is sometimes you have to find the good in everything, and it's Adam's favorite character, so it's not all bad. So that's introduced arguably the coolest Star Wars character from this special. So that's something.
Yeah.
Now saying that, did Book of Boba Fett change your mind on that?
Yes. We don't have to get into all that, but I think on our panel, I started complaining about Book of Boba Fett. I don't want to be controversial. Maybe this isn't controversial, but I
say it all the time, so don't feel bad.
Just conceptually, to have a trailer where Boba Fett is saying, I'm going to rule with peace, and, Jabba the Hutt was mean, and I'm going to be nice. I think conceptually, it just wasn't not a choice I would have made for that character.
I can agree with that.
There was a series of choices that I wouldn't have made. One of them is just like, they set it up at the tail end of Mandalorian, and he just walks in and kills Bib Fortuna in cold blood. I never knew what Bib Fortuna's problem was. His problem with Bib Fortuna was they never explained that. But then they go and they show that by the time Boba went and killed him in cold blood, he had already gone on this sojourn and became like a Tusken in spirit, and he was an evolved man. That was the evolved man walking in to murder someone in cold blood and then taking over and say, I'm going to run it with 2 people. It kind of made no sense. And then there's this beautiful scene where Boba Fett, like, he flies above the Sarlacc pit and he's looking for his armor, right? And he's hovering and he gets down close and it's done so well. And then you're like, that's like if you drove home from a bar and you're like, I must have left my keys at the bar. You're like, you got out of the Sarlacc pit. You got out. You punched your way through 10 million tons of cubic sand, apparently, And then he's laying there and he knows the Jawas took it from him, but he flies back there drunk and he's like, I'm looking for my suit. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's a cool scene, and you're like, "Am I supposed to be critical?"
I liked all the. I was a sucker for all the Rancor. I loved that. Like he was riding the Rancor at the end. I thought that was cool.
There was cool stuff in it.
That's some good stuff. Always has good stuff in it. Always has good stuff. In any Star Wars thing these days has like stuff you could point to as making you feel like a kid again. And then there's and then there's some misfires.
You know what it is? I love it so much, guys. It's like I love it so much that I can't help I want to make every Star Wars. I want everyone that watches Star Wars to experience the best Star Wars ever. I can't help but watch it and go, "Oh my God, if they would have just done this," or "Why is Boba Fett talking so much? He's a man of few words. He's mysterious," and you're giving him like a page monologue. Like clearly, Timur Morrison doesn't even want to be reading this thing. When he's doing the press, he's even saying, "Why did they give me so much dialogue?" You know, he's like, it's like. I don't know. I just wish that they would sit and take a second day, like a weekend. Just take the weekend, read it through. Second drafts are cool, guys. You can do a second draft.
No, that's not fair. As someone who makes TV, like, and had success and failures in TV.
Okay.
It's there's so many people, especially on a huge thing like Star Wars. Like every show you start with an apple that you love, and then when it goes on the air, it's like a rotten orange. Like so many people weighing in, giving their opinions. Like the real success is that it even gets out there, because something with Star Wars is so guarded, and there's so many people giving their opinions and weighing in notes. I don't even know how at the end of the day they could even agree on anything. So, I think. I do think care and love goes into it, but you don't know. It's like,
but is that the future, Adam? Is that what we're faced with? That this just Star Wars by 40-person committee?
Well,
I mean, that's in that case, I'll keep watching Next Generation reruns. You know what I mean? It's Star Wars better be the gold standard. It better be the benchmark for the best entertainment, TV or film. It's got to be, if you're making, popcorn fare, it's got to break new bounds technologically, and it's got to have that spirit of innovation.
Here's the problem. The problem is that it depends on the show. Andor was always going to be a gritty Star Wars for adults. Like it would, it was going to be nuanced and complex, and that delivered. When you have something like
did Tony Gilroy have a committee? Did it feel like Tony Gilroy had a committee?
No, he didn't, right? But when you have something like Boba Fett, that's a huge money-making character for Disney. Mm-hmm. So you have Disney corporate going, well, we have Boba Fett. We're selling so much merchandise, and it has to appeal to 4 quadrants. He can't be mean. He can't be so you are kind of hampered by the corporation that owns this thing. So I'm sure there was, I did Muppets. Virtually every scene was looked at by different departments. Is it appropriate? Like, again, Muppets is, skews younger, but it doesn't really. I mean, Star Wars is for all ages, right? So I think a lot of this is like the Disney machine having to kind of maximize their investment.
Right.
And unfortunately, that hurts creative.
That's how I always felt about it, because Disney had too many fingers in there making changes.
Go ahead.
Disney
I was going to say,
make money. They just want to make money, and you got to respect it. They bought it for billions of dollars, and if they had a R-rated Boba Fett show where he was the probably show we all wanted, I can't sit down with my young kids and watch that, and my young kids then can't get a Boba Fett action figure because they can't watch the show.
But I don't want
we had the GOLDBERGS 2 in 20 years.
Yeah, I don't want R-rated Boba Fett. I want Star Wars Boba Fett. You know what I mean? I don't need Star Wars to have aged with me in a selfish way. I don't need the adult version of bounty hunters. Give me the tone of bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back. Give me that Boba Fett, and take the time to get it right, because it could have led to seasons 2 and 3 if they did it right. It could have led to more toy sales. Not saying it's awful. I'm just saying it's not what it is as good as it could have been. And I hate being critical of people. I know how hard it is to make things. The only time I'm ever critical of media is when Star Wars, because I've been doing that since before I was a filmmaker. It's something that's near and dear to me. I'm going to keep it honest. I'm always going to keep it honest. It could be better, you know. I know how hard it is to make something, but I don't think anyone's out there saying that was the best it could have been.
But can it be better when you have Disney saying the Boba Fett you want to do isn't the one that's going to make us the most money? Like, you know, and if you don't agree, well, then we'll get someone else to do it. So you're forced to work within parameters, corporate parameters. And it's ironic because George Lucas is the ultimate indie filmmaker, right? Who self-financed Star Wars. So he sold it to the opposite, a place that is really about it's about stockholders. So, you know, stockholders need money. They need to show that it's profitable. So it's, you know, that's why, you know, that's why I think we get a lot of the stuff we do get from these big like corporate entities that are making IP.
Yeah. So like kind of talking about like how the vibe of the documentary you guys made is, our friend Kenny, he does a podcast called Trek Wars with his friend Aspen, where they watch an episode of Star Trek and an episode of Star Wars at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but and talk about both of them. But they got a chance to see like a screening of this in Austin, I believe, last week, and his review of it was basically kind of like what my thoughts of were after I watched, where it was like that the documentary is a really nice commemoration to a lot of people that did the best that they could. It's a reminder of how things used to be before we decided to make all of our media grimdark, and a reminder that TV has been disposable for a long time. But I like the quote like from Kevin Smith in there too. It's like it ain't Star Wars, but what it is.
Yeah.
But
going off the point of independent filmmaker and like pleasing the mouse, if you will, if Lucas had come out and been like, the holiday special is what it is, and just kind of owned it a little more, would we be talking about it right now?
Yes.
Or was his?
You think so?
No.
Of it
I think we talk about all Star Wars. You know, I think it's almost there's a it's so big that there are probably not the same magnitude, but it's 45th anniversary this year of the special. And I don't think anybody lets any part of Star Wars die. I mean, maybe the Ewok battle, Endor and Caravan of Courage don't get their moment, but it is so intriguing and off in so many ways that it would probably, even if they released it properly, it would still have these people being, oh my God, this is bonkers. I don't know.
I think here's what I think. The fact that there is Star Wars, like the reality is Star Wars fans know about this thing existing, but I can't tell you how many people like, hey, I have a doc coming out about the Star Wars holiday special. And they're like, what's that? Like, no one really still knows what this is if you're not in like Star Wars, if you don't speak Star Wars, right? So the reason that that's the reason. If George had embraced it and it was just a thing, it's like you're in the cool kids club. If you've seen it, if you know it, if you could joke about it, like there's just like a little kind of inside coolness to it. So I think that's George making it this taboo subject is what makes it kind of cool and inside. So if he had embraced it, I don't know, would have that specialness that like, you know, you're like in a club where you've seen it and you've had to suffer through it. So I think, and by the way, like, we try, I still dream of Lucasfilm embracing the doc and buying it and putting it on Disney Plus where it belongs. It belongs with all the other Star Wars content. You know, it's gonna, you know, we're figuring out where it's gonna land, and there's other places, other big streamers that will have a piece of Star Wars content. And that bums me out. Because I feel like it should sit next to on that app next to Empire Strikes Back when you're scrolling. And they will not embrace it. Yeah. They will not embrace it.
Related content.
Yeah, exactly. No, they won't. It's still a very controversial subject. Like I was able to have them engage and have talks and go up the chain. And what came back was, this is a controversial subject for us. And there's a lot of bad blood about it. So we can't really embrace it. So it's a bomb.
That answers one of my questions: was if you guys had permission of some sorts from Lucasfilm, or if you had any conversations with them, one way or the other.
The conversations were had, and look, it's a documentary, and documentaries come out all the time, and people are bummed and angry that a documentary is made. That's why documentaries exist, right? They can be a filmmaker can use what's the term, Kyle? Like fair use law to make something, right? And you can make it against someone's wishes, and that's kind of what we did. I think they would rather that we didn't dig up this doc and do a whole thing on it, but we really wanted to tell the story, and we wanted to. I wish we could have interviewed George. That's what I really wanted. Like, imagine how cool it would have been if at the end of this doc, after you saw the whole journey, here's George Lucas, and he's finally talking about it and that would be awesome. Yeah,
even if he just said no comment,
right? Just comes in, sits down.
You're right. I mean, I think it's documenting a piece of history. Forget that it's IP. Forget that it's Star Wars. Forget that it's Disney. This is a period in American culture when people gathered around television sets. They had 4 channels, maybe less, and they watched things as a family. This thing aired to 13 million people on November 17th in 1978. This is not like some small piece of media. This is a big event. This is coming after the biggest movie in motion picture history in the era. So we're documenting mainstream culture here. It's not like, oh, we're playing as someone else's IP. This is out there. These are clips that have existed online for God knows how far. I mean, that's how we research it. We've aggregated it. We've curated it. Right. That's what this does really well. It curates what's already out there. Everything's at your fingertips. If you want to go watch the holiday special, there's 3 or 4 copies of the holiday special on YouTube that Lucasfilm have left up there for 14 years. You can go watch it. Like, they haven't taken those down. So it's one of those things where, I don't know if it's uncomfortable or not. I think anybody at Lucasfilm watching this would go, oh my God, this is fantastic. This is done with love. Like, this is a really, and they probably love the holiday special. A lot of people up there are aware of it. And they're all good, smart people that love Star Wars, There shouldn't be anyone, that's upset by it. And we, obviously did our research and vetted everything we were putting in here through fair use lawyers. And so, no, it's not like direct permission from them, but it is something that should be welcomed by them.
What I don't fully understand is how they just released a Chewbacca Life Day action figure with the red robe. And when you go to Disneyland, there's holiday special merch that you can buy that's kind of like there because it's like, yep, it exists and it was bad. And like, so they're fine merchandising it. They do it.
Dude, I got in the mail today, Adam. In the mail today, a friend sent me the Chewbacca red Snuggie that says Life Day, the Chewbacca Vintage Collection action figure, which is a photo of Chewbacca, the photo from the special, and an ornament of Han and Chewbacca made by Disney for Disney parks, and it says Life Day on it. It's like they are merchandising it across the board, but they are afraid to just say, yeah, it came from this, I think on the back of the action figure, it mentions it.
It's so weird.
Oh, by the way.
So weird. It's like, so it's controversial and you can't do this, and we don't want to get behind the doc, but we'll also make money off. Like, I don't understand. But we're fine, putting it on a Snuggie. Like,
it's kind of like Song of the South, but not like, as as far as controversial as that is with Splash Mountain and whatnot.
It's like, it seems like things are lightening up. I mean, they have, they've done the Lego holiday special, Star Wars holiday special. They've done, they've referenced it in Mandalorian, so it's almost, it's canon at this point. They talk about Life Day in Mando, right? Like season 1.
The pilot.
In the pilot. So it's canon. That's even canon now. So it's like, I don't understand, why can't we just all agree that it doesn't really work, but it exists and it's a thing.
I agree.
Bizarre.
Put it out there let everyone make their own decision.
Also by putting the doc in a portal like Disney Plus, it then may force them to put the special itself out there, which they don't want to do. I don't know. But regardless, we love Star Wars. We have a really positive, good intentioned take on this, and we really do bring together these voices of an elder generation of television, these elder statesmen, writers, and directors that brought this thing to life, that did their work, and it's their time to tell their story. They went to work, they did their job, they wrote this thing, they directed this thing, they danced in this thing, they costumed this thing, they were the cinematographer of this thing. Why can't they talk about it? You know, I'm the R2 operator, I'm going to talk about it, you know? Yeah. So
yeah, you definitely had great interviewees on there. It's people like, you gave them their moment and you gave them their chance to just talk. When you do those, like when you get the people you interview, did you have a list, like a must-have, be great to have type thing going?
I mean, outside of the obvious.
Well, Jeremy had said, you know, his perspective, I know he's reflected in Q&As we've done. He said for him, in the celebrity bucket, he really wanted Kevin Smith and Seth Green. And, you know, Adam really helped bring Kevin Smith to the table, and I helped bring Seth. And these guys really wanted to speak about it because they love Star Wars. You know, they don't hate Star Wars. They're not going to be mean. No. Seth had worked with George on Detours and Star Wars Robot Chicken. And so he got to know him, and he has a very disarming relationship with him where he could just, you know, find out. And he personally had asked George about the special in the past, and George had given him some interesting answers. And Kevin, you know, he's outspoken, but he's not me. He loves everything. He loves Star Wars across the board. And he had a good personal experience with it. And Jeremy wanted them, and we got them. And I think in terms of the old generation, it was like them doing the research and each interview leading to someone else, you know, oh, you know, who you talk to is so-and-so. They were the blah, 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 you know. And so it was a lot of word of mouth, and you pick up momentum, and you start, more people come out of the woodwork, and then they want to talk to you. And so it took 3 years to get this thing from first interview to where we are now.
But like anyone with close ties to Lucasfilm could not, like, was scared to or we get no response. Like, we would have loved to have Favreau. We would have loved to have had Filoni. We would have loved to have had Mark Hamill, any of the actor. Like, but there is
Mark watched it and liked it. Mark really liked the doc.
Yeah, I mean,
so footage I was going to ask if the footage at the end was for the doc by Mark Hamill or
no. Mark didn't sit with us, and he has an agreement with George where he's like, I'm not going to talk about it. But he did check it out, and he was positive in his response. But I think for him, it was like, look, I have this, I'm not supposed to talk about it, you know. And he brings that up in the doc in different interviews. He always says, why don't we talk about it? But he's honorable. He's a good guy, and he's just like, you know, it's something that was not George's favorite subject, so I'm not going to go and.
And I'm sure that extends to Favreau, and, like, you know, if you're working in that world creating the new content, like it probably looks shitty if George Lucas watches and there you are talking about his failure. So, like, I get it. So yeah, we didn't get any of those people. We didn't expect to. We definitely tried to take the shot.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we were close to getting Mark because he really liked it, and you know, and
we never asked George though. We never even tried. George is retired.
Yeah. I was afraid to ask George because then he knows about it and shuts us down.
Exactly. Good point.
That was the fear. Like,
and it works without George. I think it's when you get to the end of it and you analyze this thing and you do the forensics on it, he wasn't around much for it. You know, we have our best estimation of, you know, conceptualization, the writing phase, and then, as everyone says, he was gone after that one-day session. You know, they didn't, you know, the Lucasfilm rep says, you know, he didn't see it till they all saw it, you know, right before it aired.
But
so
my favorite part of the doc, though, is I think it's Lenny that says, I've made a lot of good stuff and I've made a lot of bad stuff in my career, and I keep my name on the bad stuff. I'm happy it's on the good stuff, but I keep it on the bad stuff. So there is that conversation we have, which is he took his name off this thing. And that's a big move. I think that's a cool moment where you have basically the showrunner or one of the writers is just saying, like, it's kind of messed up he took his name off. As bad as it is, like, you don't do that. But George
he did say, you know, he's like, if I could take my name off the bad stuff, maybe I would.
Right, that is true. He does say that too.
I love J.W. Rinsler also saying, the fallout from this was nobody was fired. You read reviews of it after we show some of them. People called it successful. It just didn't air again. It just didn't have any cultural moment. It didn't stick. And so it's not like George went through and fired everybody involved.
He just disowned it. That was all.
He just didn't air it again. He didn't have to. There was probably nothing in their contract to do it, or maybe it was a CBS thing. We never got to the bottom of the business decision to never air it again. CBS spent quite a bit of money. You would think maybe they would have tried to air it once or twice more. We know it did air 6 times in Australia, subsequent holidays, but they probably just did that illicitly. We don't know, but I don't know. Maybe he called them and said, "Please don't air this again," and they honored it. Maybe nobody was proud of it, but it's not like he went through and cleared everybody out of Lucasfilm that touched this thing. And ultimately, it's not about that. It's not about pointing fingers. Really, it's really they set the ball in motion. These people came. They came to set. They did their job. I dressed up as Walrus Man. This is how hard it was to dance with B. Arthur. I couldn't even see out of my thing. I worked for 24 hours. I love the one guy. He's like, I was on set for 24 hours. They wouldn't let him leave. And he's like, then I watched it. I was like, I could have done that in 1 or 2 hours. What took 24 hours? It's these are people that were in the costumes and stuff. Must have been exciting. You're Jefferson Starship, and you get the call, and you're going to be in the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
and then you're getting your outfit, and you're just oh my god, we're the coolest band on earth. And then you're like,
oh wait a minute,
what just happened?
Starship hyperdrive. All right,
yeah. So it was also just that era. Things were weird. People tried things.
I think Patton said it. It's there was no rules, and we tried stuff. It failed. It didn't work. Move on. Act like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, while you were making it, did you go into making the documentary with one kind of narrative in mind, and as it was being made, that kind of narrative structure changed during that time, or was it always kind of you had one through line that you wanted to do for it, and it kind of stayed that the entire
It was a
time
fairly chronological through line, I think, since Jeremy was pitched it. One thing that I would say became more pronounced, maybe not more pronounced, but maybe more than in my mind than it was, and it's great that it takes on that grandeur, is the explanation and dissection of 1970s American television. So if you're a foreign person, you're watching this, you don't understand, you're like, oh, okay, there's a lot of this weird stuff on TV. And that was the only way to promote your thing. You didn't have TikTok, you didn't have Instagram, you don't have the internet, you don't have
Marie and Donnie
avenues, and you just did this thing. You had 2 hours, and wow, I got 2 hours to go do a Star Wars thing, you do it. And that was it. That was the landscape. And so setting that up to give you that information going into it before they even begin the production and the writing and physical production of it arms you with the right context. And I think that took a bigger, in my mind, I think it took bigger than I was anticipating, a bigger chunk of time, but it was done really well by Jeremy and Steve.
Nice.
Now, in that vein, had this been successful or better received by anybody, would we have had more Star Wars specials like this? Do you think they would have kept churning them out due to the high cost, even though?
That's a great question. I don't think so. Because it was really only a one-off to keep Star Wars alive between a huge movie and a big gamble of a next one. So I don't think there would have been more variety shows. This was just an experimental thing to kind of keep interest alive. And
the variety show was dead by then too. By 82, they really weren't doing it. Muppets and things like that. Marc on the Muppets. That stuff was around, but
but all that was still late 70s, early 80s. So and the Muppet Show was kind of a commentary on those variety shows too. So
yeah. So I don't think there would have been more, but look, you did get other 2-hour pieces of content, Ewok, Caravan of Courage, Battle for Endor, those things aired theatrically in Germany. You've got The Great Heap, the droids and Ewoks, so that he was looking to extend Star Wars beyond the big screen. He was looking for these other venues. Holiday special clearly didn't work, and I don't think it was going to do another special like that. But as you mentioned earlier, there's the Lego Star Wars holiday special, which is an attempt to play with Star Wars and do a special. And then you've got the things that are completely in the vein of it that wouldn't exist without it, like the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is very much playing off of the existence of the Star Wars holiday special. There's so many ones that have referenced the Star Wars holiday special. So, but I think in terms of official Star Wars content, no. I know the Star Wars show attempted to do something like that. I think in 2016 with Constable Zubio and stuff. There's been nothing that's really like a 2-hour mainstream piece of content. I don't think they would ever really attempt that again in a traditional live action format.
Right.
Over the period of time that you shot this, how much footage do you think was actually shot? Because the documentary itself is like 90 minutes, but if you had to guesstimate how many hours of actual footage you shot for it, how much do you think you would say?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, probably 70, 100 hours, 80 hours at least.
Yeah,
they'd sit with these people for an hour or two, and there's probably 50 different people,
Did anyone not make the doc from their interview, or did you get some?
There was a couple of people. The dance troupe is a family. So there were 2 brothers that were also interviewed. And the sister and the mother, I think they felt were the most compelling ways to tell that family's story, as the dance troupe. And their father, I think was no longer around, but he was the one that partook in the Thief of Baghdad stuff, which was I was like, wait, this is amazing. That was the same. And here they are watching these small people dancing in a holographic way. It was really cool. I don't think there's anybody that was wholesale cut from the film, but as we got more people like the festival cut, it didn't have Patton Oswalt or Bobcat Goldthwait or Steve Sansweet or Gus Lopez. So some of that stuff helped infuse the final theatrical VOD cut. So some people got pulled back a little bit to make room for these additional voices, but I don't think anybody was cut wholesale from the doc. There was a 10-minute Gilbert Gottfried, very explicit rant about Star Wars, R2-D2's bent over and taken, just that didn't make it in. I don't think it's making the.
Is this Gilbert's last thing?
I was going to ask that. I
think it's his last thing.
Wow,
that's cool or how it happened that you're at least able to get him in there.
Oh,
it's also A.W. Rinsler's last, I believe his last interview. And there's one other fellow who passed away as well. I'm going to blank on his name, one of the USC guys, I think. So there's 3 people. This was that are no longer with us. So it's that's why we felt compelled to make sure that we did this sooner rather than later. And I think the impetus for Steve and Jeremy was we got to get these people because people's memories fade and people's willingness to do this. They were doing it during COVID, and they were trying to be really respectful of that with very tiny 1 or 2 person crews going into places. Keep it streamlined, keep it guerrilla, and the movie was made extremely economically compared to what a lot of people do. What I'm really proud of is that there are no recreations. We're not seeing a reenactment of George on the set or in the writer's room. I don't need to see that in my documentaries. I know that's a trend right now, and people are overspending. They're spending $3 million on a doc. And you're like, why? I don't understand. Make the theatrical movie or tell the documentary. I don't want a bad hybrid version where you have not great actors reenacting. So none of that was even part of the conversation. It was let's get these people on camera and let them tell their stories in a very disarming, honest way, and I think there's so much comedy that comes from that just organically. People are just there's an absurdity to this entire thing. The biggest movie of all time is being turned into the worst content of all time.
I'm a huge proponent of Star Wars needs more comedy in it. Right now, I feel it insists upon itself at times, but I feel the world needs another Spaceballs type moment with Star Wars.
Well, I agree with you. Spaceballs is one of the greatest movies, and I remember I just dreamed of Spaceballs 2 for forever, and I realized that's just not going to happen. But Spaceballs is a classic, and what people forget is Star Wars is. People always talk about the samurai film. They talk about the Western. They talk about the fantasy They talk about the sci-fi serial. They talk about all these things, this amalgamation of genres. But they forget that Star Wars also fully partook in screwball comedy. It Happened One Night is as much a model for Empire Strikes Back and the romance as anything else. I mean, you could use a good kiss. I just assume kiss a Wookiee. All of that stuff feels like early 1940s Hollywood screwball, like a couple up against each other that don't get along, and they're gonna be on this adventure together and rub each other the wrong way until the goddamn it they fall in love. I mean, that was a big part of the tone of Empire Strikes Back. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's dark," and you're like, "No, hold on a second, dude. It was a screwball comedy. Stop." Like, that's what it was. Like,
interesting.
And it's nobody wants to acknowledge all of the aspects of Star Wars. We just want to talk about the stuff that we think was cool, that is relevant today, and that level of comedy, that type of absurdity is honestly missing from a lot of modern Star Wars content.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, the new content isn't shot like old Star Wars. That's what's missing. It's like, go back, read the camera reports, look at this. What the Promise filter was George Lucas using in the desert? And when you're going to shoot the goddamn desert, use a similar lens. You can go rent the same old lens and use the same filters. But nobody does that. Everything looks slick. Everything looks like, modern EPK. It's just like, do the research and get it right, Yeah.
I know Adam has to drop out. He's got to get going.
Yes.
We do want to thank you again for coming on, Adam.
Kyle, keep going, Kyle. It's fascinating. So
I do have to go
thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Adam. And
now we can really talk about it.
Well, I do want to be sensitive of your time too, Kyle. So I'll just ask you like 2 or 3 more questions. Then
sure.
Mike had one that was very personal about something that you were wearing in the film that he wanted to ask you about.
Okay. The Metalheads T-shirt. Where'd you get it, and can I have it?
Oh, the Metalheads T-shirt. I got that about a decade ago. I'm trying to think where.
I'm very particular with my Star Wars shirts, and I was like, I want that one right now.
It might have been. What was it, Junk Food, or was that like a T-shirt line? It might be that. I'll email you. I'll look at the tag. I have some cool old shirts. I love. There's a great shirt like Star Wars Night Crew, and it was Darth Vader, and he's holding he's got a nightcap and he's got a candle, and it was like a crew shirt. And there's another great crew shirt I had from Empire, and it was like the VFX. I think it was ILM, and it's Darth Vader in a hot tub, and he's like nothing on, but he's got the helmet, and it's the Empire's laid back. Those are cool old shirts. That one is another rad one, the Metalheads one. Nice. I have a good Chewy one that's like purple, and it's hard. There's a lot of bad Star Wars shirts.
Oh yeah. I am very. That's why I don't own many. I'm very particular, and I don't want it to be just cheesy. The next question I have: you have Kevin Smith, Patton Oswalt, and Seth Green. Who is the king of the nerds in that conversation?
Kevin Smith, Patton Oswalt, and Seth Green, king of the nerds.
Or is there someone who's way bigger nerd than them?
Actually, I'd throw Weird Al in there too, because
Weird Al. I mean, those are all pinnacle nerds. They're very famous pinnacle nerds. I'm probably more of a nerd than all of them, unfortunately.
And you are in the documentary too.
Yeah, I have problems. Out of all those, you know what? I would say they're in all different ways. They bring something different to the nerd equation. Patton, I would say, just raw information. He is like a living holocron of pop culture in that way. Like those shows that we were talking about, like he has this amazing recall of all of that stuff, and Seth has tremendous recall of obscure animation and all that stuff. They're all like, Weird Al, in order to do what he does, he has to have this tremendous understanding of pop culture, and same thing with Kevin. So you picked some really good examples there.
Because you think famous nerd, like just nerdy people, geeky people, like they're like the top 5 in the top 5. Of everyone's conversation. It's just like,
and
you get it wrong.
Paul Scheer too is incredibly knowledgeable.
Paul Scheer's I love his podcast too. The How Did This Get Made? So they probably did an episode, I would assume, at one point about the holiday special too. So
I would say if you're doing like trivia off, it would probably be Patton.
Would be my guess. He seems like he just knows everything. from nerd culture, right on the tip of his tongue.
Yeah, it's all like, yeah, I would say he'd be able to quickly recall like obscure stuff.
Nice. And then the penultimate question is, what is like the favorite like collectible or memorabilia from Star Wars that you have, that like whenever somebody comes over to your house, you have to be like, I need to show you this, and you like walk them into it and be like, ta-da.
He already told us the porn scene from the holiday special.
No, I would say okay. It's the most recent thing I've got right now. I love the Chewbacca 3 3/4 vintage collection, Red Snuggie Life Day action figure. Thing it's beautiful. Anything that's on a classic Star Wars card, the 12 or 20 back, it's stunning. It's perfect. It's one of those things like in just product history, food, car, whatever. It's perfect. It's been emulated poorly and properly for decades. It's iconic. I wish Hasbro would also just only package things on that, because if you're new to the collecting of toys or you're just a kid buying toys, it looks great. You don't know that's been the package for 40, 50 years. And if you are a lifelong collector, you're walking down the aisle, you're probably going to be like, oh my God, like you got away from me. What's this? Pulls you back in. And if you're a lifelong collector, it just kind of helps, create continuity and synergy. It's the perfect packaging. It's so beautiful you can't even take your finger off of it. And I got that one. I think it rings extra special because here we are making this documentary about this taboo, forbidden thing, and we're 45 years on. And ironically, right, the last thing was we're locking picture on the documentary. It was July, and Jeremy's like, "Man, I got a lock picture," and I was like, "Just wait." They had just announced this action figure, and I had some friends down at San Diego Comic-Con. I was in New Jersey, and I was like, "Guys, go to the Hasbro booth, ask for this person, try to get a picture. They'll take it out of the booth," and they let us shoot. It was the last footage for the doc was shooting that action figure on a friend's iPhone, because I was like, "That's." To me, is the
Wookiee figurine standing there?
Yeah.
The 4 of them?
That's cool.
Though that one was shot a little prior. That was Gus Lopez. This was like shooting the new Hasbro figure.
Okay.
And that to me was the ultimate vindication. It's like, here we are 45 years later, and they're finally putting out this action figure with not the Boba Fett, not just like some random product like a Life Day mention. This is the figure from the special with a photo pulled from the special too. And they're making a toy of it, and it felt like it had arrived, they had taken it that seriously. And here we are, like locking picture on the documentary about it. So that's my current favorite. In the past, it's like, it's old vintage stuff, but it's not even about that anymore. For me, it's like, I like going to Star Wars Celebration and talking to people. It's like, the funds to collect at the scale you're demanded to collect to keep it up is impossible.
Right.
So you kind of have to pick and choose. And I kind of, not that I got away from it, I go to collecting sites every day. I just peruse what's coming. I Google over it all, but I don't collect it all because it's half the time that it's not distributed well. I can't find it. It's like, I'm not going onto eBay to do all this, but I keep up on it all. But anything that's related to the old classic original line, I like.
Nice.
Was there any discussion on those 4 Wookiee figurines on why Mala had nipples?
Did she have nipples, or was it just bumps?
There's black dots on the tip of them.
Oh boy.
I noticed it on my second watching.
It's a prototype. They were prototype mock-ups, so I bet by the time they were mass-produced, those would not have been present.
Mike must have watched the 4K version.
Because
I didn't notice that.
I'm going to screenshot it and send it to you.
All right. And then like the last one is that we appreciated you and Adam coming on today, and then if you guys ever wanted to in the future, we'd love to have you come back to talk about Fanboys.
This is, like I said, it's a very small movie. This is as independent as it gets. You'd be shocked for what the budget was in this movie, and here we are, we're competing. We're on Rotten Tomatoes. Is the second most popular movie yesterday, and it's right behind Killers of the Flower Moon, and today we're in top 20 on Apple. We're right behind Grinch and Die Hard. It's like it's pretty cool that a movie made for virtually nothing is having a little moment, and people are fascinated by this special. And so we definitely appreciate all of the support from the fan community, all of the extra, attention. If you want to go online, if you've seen it, please go to like IMDb or Amazon or Rotten Tomatoes if you bought it or whatever, and write an honest review. If you liked it, please say you do. That all really helps because we are a tiny movie. There's no marketing budget behind us. There's no, big wing of a studio. There's no budget to keep dropping trailers on, it's just like us going on podcasts and talking to guys like you who also love Star Wars. So we appreciate the platform to talk about it.
And I appreciate the documentary because there's revelations in there like Robin Williams, the fact that we had the misnomer of Luke car crash. That's why the Wampa smacks him, that being true. It's just there's different things you get from it. Like I didn't realize, because I wasn't in the 70s, the guerrilla marketing that happened prior to its release to build Star Wars to this huge thing. Like I thought it just was released.
For me. I learned something. Yeah, I always ask people when we screen it, like, did you learn anything? And the whole audience's hand goes up. I don't think there's anybody, even if you're working at Lucasfilm, and you think you know everything about this. I think you're going to learn something. Even stuff that's in the Star Wars Archives book by Paul Duncan, I think we debunk some of it. We're like, nope, that's actually not it. We talked to the writers, and they're like, I never touched that. I never wrote that. I'll be honest. I wrote that crap, but I didn't write that crap. Like figuring some of these things out that are, those missing links in history are vital just to get the story right. So
nice. All right. So people can find all the info they want to about the film at disturbanceandtheforce.com. I have it up on the video version of this if people are watching it. And then if people want to follow you or Adam, you're both on social. Well, I know you're both on Twitter. Like right
here's
now.
Adam's. I'll give you Adam's right now. Adam, and you should follow Adam because he's always up to something cool. And if you've not watched it, I'm trying to find Adam's thing. His Muppets Mayhem show is one of the best shows last year. It's hilarious. There's a scene where like Animal goes to a job headhunter played by Ben Schwartz. It's absolutely hysterical. Adam is Adam F. Goldberg on Twitter. So you should follow Adam. He loves to talk about stuff and engage. I am Kyle_Newman on Twitter and on Instagram and on Threads, if Threads is still a thing. I don't know. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook fan page. So I'm always I'm around. I'm on the social media stuff and constantly putting out updates. And I just had 2 books come out for Dungeons and Dragons. One is a history book on the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, a coffee table book, and the other one is a sequel to our New York Times bestselling cookbook called Heroes Feast: Flavors of the Multiverse. And then they turned Heroes Feast 1 into a cooking show, and that just debuted last month. That's on Amazon Freevee and Plex.
Nice.
So what a surreal thing, like a cookbook. I didn't ever imagine myself writing a cookbook, let alone becoming a TV show. And I'm in those 20 episodes with my co-authors as like a lore master they cut to. And so try to do lots of different things. And, I also I had a Taylor Swift video come out like a little bit ago. I do a lot of random weird stuff, but that's how I like it. Unpredictable, follow your heart, do what you love.
Keep it fun.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. I lost what I was going to say. But yeah, so people check out Kyle's page, check out Adam's page.
Watch this doc if you're any type of Star Wars fan. Or
please rent it. It's like $4.99 or something like that. Yeah. And it is fun. If you love Star Wars, I guarantee you're going to laugh. You're going to be amused.
Oh, it was. I watched it twice with ease. Like it was so easy to watch. It was so great. Like, oh my!
And Carl Prusser has a score. So if you really like, the score is pretty impressive because it's hard to emulate like a Star Wars sound, like a vintage throwback kitschy sound. And he's got a really nice score, and you can find the Disturbance in the Force score on Spotify and Apple Music. And there's actually a Charlie Lippincott track. He has his own song. Nice. And there's some beautiful stuff on it. So, he didn't have a lot to work with to make this score. But really nice too if you like listening to Star Wars-esque stuff and you just want to like zone out and do writing or reading or whatever, and you want that, this is a great addition to your library. Really nice. So check out Carl's score, and there'll be streaming details coming soon. So that'll be coming on the disturbanceandtheforce.com. We don't have our streaming partner in place yet, but we're talking to people, and that'll be something coming, probably, middle next year, spring, May the 4th. We'll see.
Not November 13th.
No, maybe May the 5th. We'll see.
Well, with that, Mike and I will do our closing. As always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Oh my! Thank the maker.
Yes, praise the maker. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Bye,
thank
everyone.
you.